can mute yourself for now. All right, let me share my screen. Eric, you can share your camera, that's fine. All right, so welcome everybody to the quarterly advanced webinar on QuickBooks Online for Q2 2024. I put a link to the live slides down in the chat. So if you want to follow along, I know, especially accountants, they don't have the slides next to them. They freak out, right? So the slides are right there. You can download them. If there's any changes I make to them on the fly, you can see them because they're live slides via Google Slides. Today's table of content, we'll spend about 15 minutes, just kind of do a quick recap of Intuit and like accounting industry related news. I'll talk about like podcasts, conferences, other announcements. I'll talk a little bit about new updates in my app in the right tool to kind of give you a quick update of what has happened in the past quarter or so, because these are quarterly webinars. So I try to get you filled in with everything that's new from the first. In this case, this would be kind of the second quarter of 2024. Then we'll spend a little bit over an hour just going through all of the new things that have been added to QuickBooks Online, changes, updates, bug fixes, bugs that continue to exist. We're going to go through all that stuff. Then we'll spend another 5 minutes just talking about a quick thing that was added in QBO payroll, a big delighter, and an announcement of an additional thing that has been added to Spreadsheet Sync, which is it being available in Google Sheets soon. So this will be an hour and a half. This year marks the 10th year that I do continuous, periodical, frequency-based webinars about QuickBooks. And I can tell you, in the past 10 years, one thing has been the absolute truth: an hour is never long. so it's never enough. So we're gonna be over an hour for sure. So let's get started with Intuit and industry-related news. First of all, if you haven't signed up yet to come hang out with myself and other accountants that want to take advantage of this concept, the reframe concept that we came up with last year. This will be the second annual conference called Reframe. This year's topic or theme is influential conversation for accountants. We have 106 tickets sold. There will be a cap of 200 attendees max. We have 4 sponsors already that we locked in. We only got spots for 4 left. The ticket is $1,800. Come spend 3 days with other accountants to discuss how to get better at communications. There's early bird discounts using the codes that are sitting there. Depending on when you watch this or when you buy the ticket, you can get $400 off, $300 off, $200 off, or $100 off, depending on when you purchase the ticket. So come to Hollywood, Florida in October. Come hang out. Reframe conference. It was incredible last year. It will be incredible this year as well. All right. The other thing is I want to mention is subscribe to our podcast. It's called the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants Podcast, uqapodcast.com, or you can search anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Just search for Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants Podcast. That word unofficial is really important because we're not sponsored by Intuit. We're not controlled by Intuit. Alicia and I, my co-host, we talk about, weekly basis of all these things that are going on. We do sort of mini rants about like what we like and don't like about the things that are changing in the QuickBooks Intuit world. So definitely check that out in a weekly basis. You can be caught up to date, everything that's going on in the world of QuickBooks, specifically for accountants. So check it out, Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants Podcast. Okay, couple of important news. So Intuit came up with this new concept called the Pro Advisor in the Know. It's run by the head of Pro Advisor Training and Certifications. Her name is Jacqueline Anku, and she's doing short videos, sort of also weekly cadence. So it's interesting. Now we have dueling podcasts, let's call it that, to talk about things that pro advisors need to know. Really, really neat 10-minute format. The link is on the slides. It's basically YouTube videos. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes, 5 episodes plus the intro already released. And they kind of do their deep dive about things going on with QuickBooks. You definitely want to check that out. That's obviously from the QuickBooks perspective, not from the user's perspective, but they do invite other pro advisors to comment on these new features. So check it out. 100% champion. More information, more education. I'm always going to be backing that up. The other piece of important news is that Intuit rolled back some company files to the classic layout, which is interesting because I believe it was like May 6th or whatever was like the deadline where every single QBO file was going to move to the new modernized layout. And it was going to be a gauntlet. You know, if you weren't ready, you would be left behind. And then they realized that some fundamental features were still not working with the new layout. One of them having been price rules. Price rules actually went down completely, whether you were an old layout or new layout for a couple of days. They fixed the price rules, but they haven't quite figured out or finished programming doing the price rules inside of the new modernized invoice experience. So, so because of that, they've rolled back some company files that were actively using price rules. I don't know if they did all the company files that were using price rules or that had it enabled, or the ones that actually have some history with it. But I know that some people were getting emails just kind of letting them know, hey, by the way, your file has been rolled back to classic view until we figure out how to get the other functionality working. But price rules ended up being sort of the catalyst of that change, of that issue. The other piece of news is pro advisors, make sure you get recertified by June 30th. So if you're a core QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor or an advanced Pro Advisor, make sure you get certified so you don't lose that certification. Last piece here, and I've discussed this, I've done YouTube videos about this, it's on the podcast, a whole bunch of stuff. Intuit introduced a couple of months ago, actually probably maybe close to a year ago, this $50 upgrade where you can add on to any QuickBooks Online file, $50 a month, and you get this thing called QuickBooks Live Assisted. They've changed the name to Assisted Bookkeeping or to Live Experts. They have all these different names. Essentially, it's for $50 a month. You get elevated support. You get more coaching. You don't get a bookkeeper, but you get somebody that's beyond a technical support person reading off a script, someone with experience using QuickBooks Online, with experience in accounting and bookkeeping. So when the clients call into it, they get a little bit of a better answer. Like, you know, not just where do I go to do a journal entry, but like, how do I do the journal entry, that sort of thing. But this created quite an uproar in the accounting bookkeeping community because it just felt like it was just further encroaching into our territory. Pro advisors like myself do a lot of training. So it's like, oh, wait, so somehow the customer is going to see a $50 training option versus whatever we charge. And none of us would ever charge $50 or less for anything, you know, and then it'll be, so some people feel it might take business away from us. However, this is sort of the first layer of the release. Intuit leadership has been listening to and talking to accountants, and accountants have given their feedback. And they are now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out how to position this as a net complement to the profession. So there's a YouTube video. So I'm reframing the concept of like what the YouTube video is. So if you go to a YouTube video, it's like a 45-minute conversation where three really important Intuit leaders, Ted Callahan, Cassie Devine, and Itai, kind of talk about like why they did this, what they're trying to do, what they're not trying to do, etc. It's worth looking at, especially if you're somewhat concerned about the role of this $50 product offering in the QuickBooks online accounting world. Okay. And the last piece here is on May 31st. So this is the next gauntlet type of announcement, that on May 31st or by May 31st, all these reports that are listed here, we're talking about location list. It's all listed in the slides. Location list, open invoice list, payment method list, all these things that you see listed here. The physical inventory worksheet, product service list, sales by location detail, terms list, transaction list by customer, transaction list by vendor. All these reports will no longer show the classic view version. So this is the start of them little by little removing or killing the classic reports so they can move to the new modernized reports platform, which, by the way, as much as I didn't like it at first, I'm actually liking the new platform better. It feels like there's a lot more stuff you can do when it comes to customization. Just obviously, all change is going to be turbulent, right? And that's what we're going through right now, which is where they're changing from the classic platform to the new platform. And it is a little bit of an issue, just kind of getting your brain rewired into like, where do I click to customize and that sort of thing. But at this point, I've done testing, and I could tell you, I'm pretty certain that 99% of the stuff you used to be able to do in the old reports, you can do with the new reports. Okay, so another quick thing I want to just go through, and this is more of like read the slides type of thing. So we in the last quarter, Right Tool it's my app. It's a software that I designed together with my partner Mark, and we add all sorts of add-on functionality into QuickBooks Online. And here in this slide, we just have a list of all the things we added just the last quarter. We have over 120 live features in Right Tool for both the free and the pro version. For just the free, it's about 50 live features. All you got to do is go to righttool.app, install it, experience it, and then you decide if you want to move to the next level and go to pro. So I just wanted to have a slide there. It's just a kind of a permanent record of like all the things that we added this quarter. Right Tool is very much part of my world and everybody in my office and a lot of the colleagues that I know. So whatever happens in Right Tool affects a lot of accountants because that's what they're using day to day. So let's jump right into the content. So that was a good 11 minutes of intro. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out during the intro part, and Eric for being quiet. And now you will have a chance to chat. So for the first time in this quarterly webinar series, I invited somebody from Intuit to come add some color commentary to all the things that particular person worked on. So Eric Foster, we have become friends. We worked for about the last 8 months, all sorts of different issues, all sorts of different feedback I've been giving Eric, and I would probably tell you that 95% of the stuff that I asked for, his team has figured out how to put together. So a lot of the enhancements in bank feeds have been, pushed by me and other people like me that give Eric and his team a lot of feedback. So I know Eric has worked on bank rules, receipts, reconcile projects and payments, but his current big thing is bank feeds. So Eric, 1 minute introduction of yourself, and if I missed anything, please add that.
Well, thanks for having me on the webinar, Hector. Excited to be here. As Hector was mentioning, yeah, we've been working together quite a bit. One thing that's really important for us is getting feedback from all the different types of people we serve, whether that's small business owners who are using QuickBooks on their own and pro advisors and accountants. And Hector's been incredibly valuable because he's got this whole network of everyone and channeling all that feedback to us about where we have opportunities and where we can make the bank feed better in particular. And I'm really happy with a lot of the results that we've been able to get in the product and ways we've been able to save people time and all that. And excited to share some specifics of that with you today. One thing that I've personally heard a ton, not just from Hector, but also from speaking with many of you, is that every click really, really matters, and time is money. And if you're an accountant and you're using QuickBooks all day, then the clicks multiply, right? 1 click per transaction times a whole lot of transactions is a whole lot of clicks. And a whole lot of clicks is time that you're spending on QuickBooks and time that you're not billing to your client. And so clicks are literally money. And so what I've heard is that if we offer accountants the choice between try and do something magic and crazy versus cut down on the clicks, we have a lot of people who say just cut down on the clicks, make it efficient, make it fast, and help me get through this. And so that's been a lot of our focus for the past few months.
Right, absolutely. Thank you, Eric. And I just wanted to mention that either Eric has been learning from me or we are kindred spirits, because that's my motto. I every second counts, right? Especially when we're faced in the world where we're trying to like race against computers, and add value in addition to what AI can do. We can be really slow at our work because, it's just like AI particularly will render us useless pretty quick. So we need to figure out together with our software partners like Intuit, can we build type of software that's ergonomic to our workflow, like it adapts to how we work and how quickly we work and how our hands move and where our eyes move and the number of clicks. All that stuff is really important. So let's go through all the changes that have happened in bank feeds in the past quarter or so. And we'll start. So first, one of the recently, but not so recent features that Eric actually confirmed that this was added years ago, but it felt like it was sort of broken and it sort of like come back to life, which is when you connect your bank to QuickBooks and you have one of the major banks that actually do a statement download, QuickBooks now will grab the information from the ending balance of the following month's statement. So let's say, for example, in this example, I just reconciled January. So then when I go click reconcile again, QuickBooks will automatically auto-populate the next month in the ending date, and it will grab the ending balance from the bank statement and plug it in there. But just to make sure that we are in alignment here, this is only when you have a bank connected that actually downloads statements. So is that correct? That's the condition, Eric, right?
Yep. And the team's still working on this one, I think.
Right. And the team still working on this has to do with, like that quote has to do with, some people are reporting that QuickBooks sometimes is not grabbing the right date. So it's grabbing some random date from the future or the past and plugging that number in. So that's where they're troubleshooting through, is just making sure that QuickBooks has a more sequential understanding of like how reconciliation work. Sometimes for whatever reason, it'll grab something 2 months in the future or 3 months in the past, and we really can't figure out the pattern that does it. But this is something that they know about and they're working on. The next interesting piece here that we're trying to, I'm still trying to figure out, and maybe Eric can add some color commentary on this, is what I've noticed that in some accounts, in some QuickBooks Online accounts, the ending balance shows up as the first field and the ending balance as the second field. And in other accounts, it's flipped, ending balance on the first field, and ending date on the first field and ending balance on the second field. Now, one of the fact patterns that I'm seeing here is that, and again, Eric, I'll allow you to add commentary to this, is what Intuit wants to do is, most accountants have given feedback that they want to see the date first and the balance second, because that's just the most logical way our brain goes to figure out which month am I doing. Let me enter the date and then I go for the balance. But for whatever weird reason, because of the system trying to automate the ending balance and kind of maybe where the box that was being targeted to put the information, some accounts were flipped. So now we're currently in the situation where Intuit is trying to like fix this issue and figure out what is it going to look like moving forward. So Eric, any thoughts on what is going to happen with this?
So I don't work on Reconcile anymore, so I can't speak to it firsthand, but I do know that when Hector reported it, it went over to our Reconcile team, and their top goal is making it consistent. So it's always balance and then always date, or always date and then always balance. And I know that that's their top priority, and they're working right now on getting that fixed.
Yeah, so my general feedback is, really, it doesn't matter which one it is. It just needs to be the same all the time, because accountants, we're creatures of habit. So like my brain goes automatically to go, okay, first field, I got to type the date, and I end up typing, the wrong thing in it. So it's just keeping it so it's the exact same workflow. That's exactly what we need. Like, I think most accountants want date first and balance second, which is a change of historically has always been balance first and date second. So but it doesn't really matter what it is. It just needs to be the same. Like some people are going to give you feedback that they want it just like it used to be, and some people are going to love date first. At the end, I don't think it really matters. I think it just needs to be consistent throughout every account, bank, credit card, balance sheet account. It really doesn't matter. It just needs to be that. The other piece of feedback I would love to give your team, Eric, is on the automation of plugging in a date and plugging in the amount. I would love to toggle that off, just in case it's doing it wrong, or just in case I don't want that to happen, or I want to force maybe the person to actually look at the statement first. Like there could be all sorts of reasons why we don't want to automate this. Like automation is not always good, and this is a good example of where automation it's going to be a net good, because our workflow might require the person to at least pull the statement, because one of the challenges that we're going to have is that once people get used to this, they're just going to click on start reconciling. They won't even look at the statement. And on the next screen, if it says 0, whether or not they've gone through the exercise of making sure it's right, they're just going to hit, reconcile. And it might not force them to go to the process of having to actually make sure it matches the statement. So just a piece of feedback for you to take on and, give it to your team. Okay. Next screenshot I'm showing is, and again, I think Eric also confirmed that this is not necessarily new as well, but I just noticed it, is sometimes when there are what QuickBooks is calling tricky transactions, which are payments to credit cards or transfers, things that are not like the obvious expense or the obvious deposit from a sale. QuickBooks has a little guide that says, hey, by the way, there are some transactions that could be tricky to categorize. We can guide you to this process. And you click on we'll guide you, and it'll show you all the transactions, and they'll give you kind of a wizard, kind of like more basic user type of workflow to help you book this. Now, I love this idea. I don't like it as an accountant. Like I wish that in the accountant view, I don't need it, right? It's like power. The thing about power users is that every single little message that you give me, I have to stop and read it, right? Like I have to stop and read it. And I don't need this. So like as an accountant, I don't need this at all. I could totally see how end users would. So again, it's one of those things that I wish I could just close and permanently, like you showed me the first time, don't show me this again. That would be my preferred choice. Any insights on this, Eric?
Yeah, so this was definitely built not for you, or probably honestly not for anyone who's here. It's built for the small business owner. The original use case on this one was loans. What we realized was that a lot of small business owners, they'd have a loan payment and they just book the whole thing against the loan and not split interest from principal, which number one is wrong. And number two, they're actually leaving money on the table, right? Because they're not deducting the interest part that's tax deductible. And so the original, if you see who did you pay, lender, that was the original use case here, and then it expanded to others. But yeah, most of you have probably not seen this because we try and show this only to small business owners.
Right. And just my piece of feedback on this is, I know what Intuit's ultimate goal is to be able to do the world's accounting on their own, automated through the system without the need of an accountant. But this is the exact reason why there is the existence of an accountant. You know what I mean? Like when you go buy a house from someone, the person that you're buying it from doesn't give you a pop-up and say, warning, contracts are difficult to understand. You want me to help you read through the contract? No, you go hire an attorney by your side to work alongside of you. So I think that a lot of the issues and challenges that I have, especially when it comes to the optics of Intuit's partnership with accountants, is the more of these things that you do, and at the same time expose them to our clients and our files, the more we start feeling wary of like, what is our role here? Because you don't need to like walk people through this if they have an accountant. That's the role of the accountant. So while this should exist in a QBO file that has no accountants attached to it, I get that 100%. The ones that have accountant attached to it, like this shouldn't happen at all. So that's just my general feedback in terms of like I don't need these pop-ups. And probably my clients don't either, because they have me to give, like I'm their pop-up. You know what I mean? Like that's what they pay me for. They pay me to give them relevant pop-ups that matter to them, that have the right answer, that don't have approximately the right answer. You see what I'm saying? Awesome. Okay. So next one, and this is also right now, like Eric has been taking a beating for things that he didn't work on. Now I'm going to actually show you the stuff that he has worked. His team has actually worked on. I'm going to give him kudos because they've done a fantastic job. So QuickBooks Online has added a couple of additional functionality inside categorized transactions. Okay. One of them is once the transaction, and we're going to demo this, once the transaction has been categorized, you no longer, like if there's an error or something, you no longer need to like, delete the transaction or undo it and then go back and fix it. You can fix transactions after they have been categorized. There's a workflow for just doing one by one that allows you to change the payee or the category one by one in what I call inline editing. And then there's a workflow to do them in batch. I'm going to show both. The batch one we already showed in the last quarterly webinar, but I'm going to show it again to add some additional context and also kind of pick Eric's brain about what went through this process and what kind of feedback they got. So we'll discuss that. And the second piece of this is now you can add products and services. Holy crap. This is amazing, into bank feeds. And then there's so many specific reasons why this is required, particularly important for companies that track items, products, and services, like project-based businesses, construction businesses. We're going to be using items instead of accounts. So this is really, really important. So let's demo these two. So we'll open up QuickBooks here live. I'm going to go into transactions, and we'll go into bank transactions. And we have a couple of things that were downloaded through the bank. Let's just grab one of these things here. So a couple of transactions, right? So let's say, for example, I go in here and I accept a couple of these transactions. Maybe I categorized them correctly, maybe I didn't. I'm going to come in here, categorize a couple of things, put a couple of payees, and then it could be right, it could be wrong. It doesn't really matter, just kind of to show you. So I'm going to click on accept. So once you've accepted a transaction, whether or not it was made by a rule, whether or not you enter it manually, whether or not you actually put a payee on it, whether or not you change the default account that was suggested, you can go back into categorized. And then from this workflow, you can, again, either change one by one. So for example, let's say this is the wrong payee here, and I want to change that. I want to add and just want to put here Stripe sales. And I do want to add some kudos. They've also fixed the logic in which when it's a deposit transaction, it defaults to a customer, and when it's an expense, it defaults to a vendor. Great job. Very, very important. Very, very needed. So we'll add here my Stripe sales customer immediately, because I just did it inline. It'll fix it. So that transaction has been fixed immediately. Same thing here. I could change each one by one. You get to see, you see a little refresh, the little 4 dots that spin. That's just letting you know the transaction is being saved or refreshed. I love this because sometimes, like a scalpel, I want to go in there and I just want to like pick one by one and not just do a whole bunch of things in batch. But if there's a whole bunch in batch that I need to fix, for example, I can sort it by description, and I can look at a particular fact pattern. So we see here, capital one, capital one, capital one. Okay, these are all capital one. So I don't want to go in there and choose capital one by one. So what I can do is I can select 1, 2, and 3, or I can do my favorite, shift click all the way down, select a whole bunch in the group. And then once you selected a whole bunch in the group, as long as they are all, this is a really important piece, they're all expenses or they're all deposits. That's really important. They all kind of need to be the same. For some reason, these 3 are money out, and it's not letting me do it.
2 are credit card payment, 1's expense.
Okay, yeah, because they're credit card payments. So let's use a different example, just because they're different transaction types. And the good thing that it happened, see, these are credit card payments. You can't use an expense account to reclassify. So they're more like transfers. So maybe not a good example. Well, let's do these fee reversals here. So I'm going to go 1, 1, 1, and 1. And then I'm going to pick a vendor, a particular vendor, to do all these fee reversals. Then I'm going to go into edit under the transaction. In this case, this is actually money coming in, like sort of like my bank refunding fees back to me. So these will all be deposits. And then let's say this is Chase. Create my payee Chase, of course, because it's a deposit. I'm choosing customer, not vendor. And then I can come here and put it into bank fees or whatever account it is. So if I already have it in my chart of accounts, I select it, or I can create on the fly as well. Now, the only interesting piece about this is that this workflow still uses, I'm going to call it a classic new account creation, which is this square pop-up in the center of the screen, and it's not consistent with the right drawer. By the way, I personally like this pop-up better, so I'm actually thankful for this, but I generally not too happy about having to remember 2 different workflows. So like if we're going to commit to the right drawer, So if we're going to commit to the right drawer on the chart of accounts, we should probably commit on here too. Now, on a different context here, and I see some sort of live feedback here saying, Hector, why did you make Chase a customer? Because they're the ones that charge you a fee. Now, I was just showing you the concept that when you create a new payee from a deposit transaction, it's going to default to customer. That's just that is the natural way of things. I mean, I happen to just like not think through it, but okay, that Chase should probably be a vendor. But what I'm just trying to say, you could change that, but what I'm just trying to illustrate is that that QuickBooks will default the contact type based on the type of transaction. So this is not QuickBooks being inconsistent. This is actually QuickBooks being very, very much consistent, okay? Because it is a deposit transaction. Now, the accountant, the user has to apply the logic and go, oh yeah, that's a reversal of an actual, vendor transaction. So then we click on save, and then all those transactions, all these fee reversals automatically got sent to the right payee or vendor, and then they went into the right category. So this is actually absolutely awesome. It's actually almost close to flawless. I think this works really, really well. These screens these columns can all be resized. Believe it or not, that's actually a hot commodity in the QuickBooks online world, because it doesn't always pan to be true. Like when these things are released, they're not always released with the capability of resizing. So I'm gonna very much appreciate that. When you click on the little gear menu, you can still choose, whether you want 50, 75, 100 to 300. Only thing that's missing here is the ability to flip this from debit to credit, because I can, on this screen, I can do, spend and received. But then on this screen, I don't. While it's not 100% required, sometimes me being on the same screen and then seeing two modes of the screen without the same functionality trips me up a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of add that. Also would love to be able to pick and choose which columns I want to see here. I don't know if this file has classes enabled. Do you know on top of your head if classes would be showing here? If I have
Not yet, but we're looking into whether we can make that happen.
Okay. Yeah. So classes and locations would be something else that we want to add here. And as a super added bonus here, which would be even more amazing, is if I could actually choose the customer job, the actual project, right? The customer job project. That would be great too. I understand that because of real estate, it's going to be tough to add like 3 more columns to this. But if I have it at least on the batch entering screen, that would be incredible, because we find ourselves so many times having to batch enter a customer job. Of course, this is not going to be easy when you have a split transaction. Split transactions are a different monster. But for the routine one-line transactions, that would be really, really cool. So that's this feature in a nutshell. Eric, did I miss from showcasing anything important on this?
I don't think so. I saw a little bit in the chat asking about when things will be available, in particular in Canada. So this is available worldwide, and this may be why you're not seeing it in Canada, it doesn't work, or it's not enabled, I should say, if you have multi-currency turned on in your company, and we know that a lot of people in Canada have that. The reason for that is that if you have a transaction that's, let's say, to a US payee, and then you change it to a Canadian payee using this, there's some things on the transaction that need to change, and we want to make sure to do that correctly. And so right now, if you have multi-currency, you can't see it. But if you're in Canada and you do not have multi-currency, or in any other country for that matter, you should be able to see this feature.
Awesome. The other quick thing, and it's not related directly what you've been working on, but like, for example, when we're on this screen, Eric, I'm gonna scroll down and go down here. You see how these headers here? These headers are important. And then all of a sudden, when I scroll all the way up to like past the first line, I don't see a sticky header. And Intuit has been able to do this with other screens. I believe the chart of accounts has this functional. Yes, it is. So all you got to do, Eric, is just walk over to like whatever the person that works in chart of accounts, ask him for that piece of code, copy and paste it, get it into banking next week, and we'll be happy. Ready? And, sorry, just kidding. But we need that. We need that pretty badly. You can even like take some of the code from Right Tool. We already built this. I just want to show you really quick. This issue we have solved because it has been part of our the feature requests from our users. But we have a little setting here, Write tool, that will override QuickBooks. Let me see, I think it's something with header right here, sticky table header and bank rules. So like with Write tool installed, if we scroll up, we already figured out how to fix that. We're still kind of working on, like some of the formatting, making sure that's right. I mean, we're kind of hacking QuickBooks in the process. So you can kind of see what we did there, or maybe figure out from the chart of accounts team to see what they did. It's not perfect, but it works for the most part. So something to kind of think through, because it's been proven that people want those sticky headers. And this is not a trivial, like only on this page thing. It should go across all of QuickBooks screens. That sticky headers, really important concept. Okay, and do you have any questions on that, Eric, or no?
No, I see there's some questions about items, but I think maybe I'll let you speak to that and then go through any questions that are remaining.
So we'll work through the next piece of this, which is having items. Okay, so first of all, you have to be on Plus or Advanced. Okay, so this was in Plus or Advanced. So that's a really important thing, because Essentials doesn't have this feature. Then you have to go into your accountant settings and into expenses. You have to go here where it says show items table on expense on purchase forms. And this is really important, because this is the general functionality that allows QuickBooks to create checks or checks or bills that contain the item, the product and service, instead of the account only. So you have to be able to turn this on. If you can't turn this on, this is not going to work. So, so of course, logically, you got to be in Plus or Advanced, because this feature is not available in Essentials. Now, I'm going to get on my soapbox real quick. Why the heck not? It's a whole different ballgame. I think Essentials should have items in line on the transactions. And the reason why I say that is because in QuickBooks Desktop Pro, which probably be the sort of the parallel to like Essentials versus like a Premier or Enterprise type of thing, we've always had the ability to do either expenses or accounts or items. So like, in my opinion, limiting it to Plus is kind of silly, and also kind of a missed opportunity. Anyway, where it does kind of sort of make sense, let me just refresh the screen, where it sort of kind of could make sense, is because the application for items is mostly for projects, and projects is only in Plus and will always only be in Plus. So from that perspective, yeah, I get it. So, but I just wanted to give you general feedback on my thoughts on that. Okay, so I went in there and downloaded some transactions. Let me go to the expense side. And then any transactions here on the expense side, all I have to do is click on it. And actually, I'm going to log out and log back in. And this is a common sort of challenge that we have when you change a major setting like that. So I'm going to log back in. And Eric, I don't know if you have any insight on that when you turn on that feature, that you do have to log out and log back in to get it to work, right?
In theory, it should work with just refreshing.
Yeah,
maybe the setting.
In theory, it should work. It's like a shirt that every Intuit employee should wear, because that's always that's kind of like the motto.
I'll put it another way. I haven't had to log out and log back in to make the setting take.
All right. No problem. All right. So let me go back into expenses here, and actually back into bank transactions, and let's go into spend. And this is live across all the files? Like, could there be a possibility that my particular file doesn't have it? That I can switch
Yeah, it could be. So here, I'll address this one now because it came up in the chat as well. About half of companies have this setting in the bank feed right now. What we do, not just for this, but for most features, is we try and ramp them up. It kind of reduces the impact in case something goes wrong. It gives us the opportunity to gather more feedback before we send something out to everyone. And so this items feature in the bank feed's live to about half. It'll be available to everyone as soon as we feel comfortable basically pushing it out, which hopefully not too longer, but can still take a couple months. There you go.
Yeah. So I was in a file that didn't have it, and I opened another file that has it. Both files are Plus, by the way, so nothing to do with, like, it's not advanced only. I just want to make sure, because most of us have grown a little bit jaded about this whole thing, where that must only be in advanced type of. So most of the time, like every time we do something and like it doesn't work, we're like, it's probably just in advanced, and then we kind of move on. So this is not a just advanced issue. It is a plus. It's a plus and advanced. It just happens to be the file that I was on didn't have it. Okay, so now you see it. Now you have it, and there's a. I'll give you some. I'm going to give you some feedback too, Eric, in terms of some of the logic of this, and I'll do a couple of examples, like best case scenario, and then some examples I feel a little bit awkward. Okay, so in this case, let's say I wanted to use a product or service, so I'm going to pick like normal. Yeah, I'm going to have my vendor here. This is going to default to a vendor because it's an expense type of transaction. Everything beautiful, everything great. One thing I would love to see, Eric, and I know this is not your department because that right drawer, it's a different department, but I would like to hit enter. Okay, and it just worked. It doesn't. Okay, so one thing that just drives me crazy is that. Okay, so I wish that's something that Intuit would just fix. I type the name of the vendor, press enter, move on. Just not there. Good news is if I hit tab and then enter, then it works. Okay, that's something. Okay, good. So at least that works. But like, why do I have to hit tab? Yeah, again, I'll get off my soapbox there for a second. Okay, now by default, QuickBooks is going to suggest an account naturally, maybe because that QuickBooks is trying to guess what this is. Now, I don't have to delete this and then go into product and service. I can just go into product and service and skip that. Just the challenge is if I don't delete this, and it could get a little confusing, where I go and I pick my product and service, let's say it's widget 2, this should trigger the account being deleted because this confuses the user. So what exactly am I doing? Am I doing the account? Am I doing the product and service? From my understanding is if the product and service is blank, it will default to whatever is in the account. If there's something in the product or service, it will then ignore what's on the account. Okay, that's what I understand this to be, and allow you to confirm that unless you haven't studied this.
Yeah, we've actually been working on this interaction a little bit. This is part of the reason we don't just put everything on everyone at once, so that we can get that kind of feedback. What we actually originally had is that we grayed out the other field so that you could only select one, and people found that confusing. And so then what we did is change it to this. And yeah, I think the target is that when you fill one, it will clear the other one, but will not gray it out. This is exactly the reason. And I know it can be unfortunate when you have to wait a little while to get features, but that's why.
That's fine, Eric. Just so you know, everything that I say here is tough love, man. I'm gonna say something publicly here. I've worked with many Intuit employees in the past. No one has been more responsive, more understanding that Eric has. Your team has done a fantastic job. The fact that you got us here, it's incredible. This is a little thing, like just, should we gray it out? Should we blank it out? That's a little thing. And then the users are going to give you the feedback. So I would love, let's just take an opportunity, and we have 460 people watching live. What would you prefer? Would you prefer that when I put a product or service here for the account to blank out completely or to gray out, or to just delete whatever is there now? Or should it highlight in a way, like, should it be really obvious for the user what they are using? And what some people would say is, I want to drop down where I select whether I'm using account or product or service, and have a different entity list show up depending on what you choose. But then it's like one more thing for me to click. So I like just tabbing through in my opinion. Okay, again, just deleting it, leaving it blank, or graying it out, something for you to test out. Okay, so you're getting some free feedback here.
It's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of gray out feedback in the chat. I think what's happening though is everyone in the chat, you've seen this, so you know what's happening. What we did was we took this to customers and didn't tell them what was happening. And we just stuck it on them live and said, how would you use this? And it grayed out, and everyone got stuck. And it's because they don't know what's coming. That's the difference. And so we said, all right, if that's going to get people stuck, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, not everybody has a Hector here recontextualizing and reframing everything. So you're going to follow the sequence. But most people are going to be playing with this firsthand and trying to figure out what this is, right? Believe it or not, as many followers I have in YouTube, maybe only 1% of QuickBooks users watch my videos. So a lot of this stuff has to be, understood contextually from the get-go. So yeah, it's good point. Big problem to have to tackle. So I don't envy you at all. So anyway, so I'm going to click on add, and that adds the transaction. So just to show you some context, once the transaction is added, and I'm just going to assume that that did add, I'm going to go here and look at my expense. Okay, it didn't add. Maybe something glitchy happened here. Let me click on save one more time. Okay, I'm going to X out of here. I'm going to refresh for a second, just in case it's a weird browser cache issue type of situations. I'm not going to say that this feature is broken, at least yet. Let's try this one more time. Let's do ChatGPT. Let's pick our product. Let's click on save. Okay, this is an inventory part. Maybe there's some weird error happening in the background. Let me try this service. Click on add. Okay, so note that that was an inventory part. Maybe something strange is going on, with that. I don't know, but let's try one more here. Let's pick a vendor, press save, and then we'll pick an inventory part. Let's click on save, see if that glitches. Okay, yeah, so something's weird where the inventory part is not kind of letting it go through. Now, I generally wouldn't be receiving inventory through this because I can't pick the quantities. It's a whole nother sort of deep and complicated conversation here. But so if it's a non-inventory, it seems to just work just fine. It looks like. So I just wanted to kind of show you that live there. And then so let's look at the transactions. So the expense gets created. Notice that it uses the item instead. Now, what's interesting about this is whatever products and services have their own description. This is the natural state of things. A product service has its own description. Intuit, or you guys, made the decision to not bring the natural description from the item and bring the description that comes from banking. Now, I don't have any problem with that conceptually. All I'm saying is sometimes we want that, sometimes we don't. That gets really, really tricky. So the solution could be to bring the bank description and then go hyphen and then bring whatever the default description is. And the reason for that is because sometimes we'll use we won't use like an item search. We'll use like a text search, like a description search, and we are used to seeing those descriptions there, so we can search through them. So again, I'm not telling you what the solution is. I'm just telling you, keep in mind that just bringing in the stuff that came from the bank might be a little bit of an issue. Now, that being said, the memo from the bank is the single most important piece. But again, sometimes we want to see the actual item description. Okay, so I'll click on save, and then let's take this one step further. Let's go a bit more complex. So let's say we have a transaction here, and I want to split this across more than one item. So there's a split button that has always existed. We got a split button, but it's really cool. Now the split button has both areas, has the category area and the product and service area. And thank you for not making it a toggle where you can do either or, because sometimes we have those weird situations where we'll have like something on this, something on the top, something that goes straight to a category, and then something that goes into like an inventory part type of thing. And by the way, now I'm thinking that the challenge we had with the inventory piece is because we can't pick the quantity. So I'm thinking that's the challenge that you're having. So yeah, we do have to default it to a quantity of 1, I think. So I think this might be the challenge that you guys have to the logic you guys have to think through. Okay, and then
I'll also tell you why we enabled it for both on split. The
Yes.
biggest one was shipping. So a lot of people, they buy a bunch of items and they want to track those, but then they're also paying for shipping and they don't record that as an item. And so shipping will be up top. You'll choose a ledger account from your chart of accounts, and then the rest of it will be items along the bottom.
No, absolutely. That's why I said immediately. I said thank you, right? Because we want that. The only mini challenge you're gonna have here is that this screen doesn't have a natural scroll bar. Doesn't have like a visual scroll bar. So like I have to use a mouse scroll action. Like I have a trackpad. Okay, I'm weird like that. I actually have a trackpad. I have a desktop and I use a trackpad because again, I'm a creature of habit. I go from laptop to desktop, and I can't retrain my brain to go from being really avid on a trackpad and then on a mouse. otherwise I have to bring my mouse everywhere when I use my laptop. So anyway, so I have to scroll with my two fingers to get here. If I don't have a scroll bar, then it wouldn't work anywhere else. So just kind of think through, again, give that some thought, because that's an important part of this. Okay. Let me know if you have a question on that too, but that's kind of the concept. The date, oh geez. Okay, so another, I'm not sure this has something to do with inventory. Okay, never mind. So just ignore that. Don't look at a man behind the curtain. It's an inventory weird thing. But don't worry, I don't have time to go through it, but it's not a QuickBooks problem, it's a user problem. Anyway, so that's it for expense items. The behavior is quite different when it's money received. And by the way, thank you for adding these two, because I know the first version of this didn't have it. So this actually came very recent, where when a deposit comes, you now get the chance to choose whether it's a deposit or a sales receipt. Now, the only piece of feedback I will give here is that I would probably want this to be in deposit as the default. I don't want this to be blank. I prefer to have it there, because I don't want to have to choose that, so because typically we're tabbing through things. It's a very typical thing that we do, that we tab through things. So then I'm going to put my customer's name. So I'm going to put here my customer's name. Let's pick this guy. And then instead of account, and again, if I pick an account, this is going to go to deposit. Like, this is the logical thing, right? Because sales receipts will never use an account. But if I use a product or service, essentially this automatically changes to sales receipt. I love that logic. That logic nailed it. So what I think is just leave it in deposit by default, since you're giving me the product and service anyway. Even when I pick deposit, all I have to do is just tab through it, pick my item, and then it will change it up here for me automatically. So I'm just saying there's no need to keep it on, to leave it on blank by default. But the other challenge is, and this is what I alluded to earlier about how this gets a little bit awkward, is I have vendor customer here, and then I have customer job here. Now, this gets a little bit nerdy into like how QuickBooks works, but this is important and relevant on deposits, okay? Because a deposit is going to have a field for you to have a payee. Then it's going to have a little checkbox where you can choose, I will return this item or something like that, or track returns or something weird like that. And then it allows you to put a customer job. So you can track any deposits back to, particularly for like returning expenses and that sort of thing, like refunds for expenses. So you can send it back to the job cost. Where it gets a little bit awkward here is, as a user, which customer, like for the sales receipt, which customer am I using? Am I using Mary Garcia, or am I using Joe Mitchell? So I don't know, like and just now, look, it just deleted. So I'm not sure. So it looks like the logic kicked in where it figured out that
that's a bug we're working. I know about that one, because we're working on fixing it.
Yeah. So if the customer job is blank, I guess I'm gonna exit and go back to it. So if the customer job is blank, then okay, well now it's not showing. Let me do sales receipt. Okay, now it's not showing.
It shouldn't be there. We're getting rid of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's just the design issue. Okay, never mind. So don't worry about it, guys. It won't be there, but in the next couple of weeks, so that's fine. Okay, so let's continue. So we pick our customer job, then we pick the item that we're gonna essentially sell, right? And then this automatically becomes a sales receipt. So when I click on add, and I go back into my search and I open up my sales receipt, it creates this beautiful sales receipt. Love this. Thank you very much. Perfect. Beautiful job, man. Your team did awesome. We love this so much in so many deep levels you don't even understand. And the other thing worth just mentioning here is the split. So you can also split the sales receipt. You're going to see products or services. What's particularly different and dynamic about this is that this split screen changes depending on what's up here on type of transaction. So if you have deposit in type of transaction, so if you have it to deposit and then you go into split, Then it goes into a deposit split, which is going to contain categories. But so that's the only part where you kind of really have to make sure that you pick the correct transaction when you go into split. In my opinion, Eric, I would put the drop down up here to switch from up here somewhere to switch from deposit and sales receipts, just in case I go straight to splits and I forgot to put the right thing in there. That way, from the screen, I don't have to go back and come back here. So just something to kind of think about. Okay, so then you pick your items that you're selling. Boom, and boom. And let's do 2774.60, and then 20,000. Yes, I love these split screens that contain the subtotal here. I've always loved this so much. So apply and accept. Let's go back into the sales receipt, and then we can see both of our items. A beautiful thing. I can't thank you enough for this. Amazing. Anything that I haven't added that's worth mentioning, Eric, on these features?
I think that's about it. I'll tell you one thing that's kind of left on the sales receipt part is tax. If you're in the US and you have tax turned on, we are not showing you this experience yet while we work out what we want to do. What we may do is say, hey, if you've already received the money from someone, you've already calculated the tax, you don't need to be recalculating the tax again in bank feed. But we're still taking feedback on that, actually. So if you'd like, feel free to put it in the chat. Those are the, but what that means is if you have tax right now, you will not see this yet while we still finalize that approach. So happy to take your feedback on that as well. And actually, since this is closing us out, I'll add one more thing, which is this items and sales receipts feature. People have been going to the gear icon in QuickBooks and then hitting give feedback and asking for this for years. I really mean years. And yeah, exactly. Right there. And I've read literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of things that go in there. And it pains me to see people writing in there and saying, hey, does anyone actually read this? It goes straight to the people who build the product. We have enough time to read it. We don't have enough time to respond to every single one, but I promise you, people are reading those things. And that was a huge part of why we were ultimately able to get this done. So please leave more of that kind of feedback, because that helps us figure out what matters to you. And this feature would not have happened without that.
Yeah. On the solution for sales tax, for now, it's going to be you have to create your sales receipt or your invoices from scratch, and then you're just going to match it. You're just going to match it because it's very complicated, and it's going to get even more complicated, I believe, like in Canada and Australia and stuff like that, because you have inline, GST and VAT and all that stuff. So you have to think through these scenarios too. And some lines are inclusive of GST, some have to be calculated separately, some get back added into it. I mean, it's going to be easier in the US for sure, because sales tax is a single dimension, is only on the sales side, but it's got to be a challenge on overseas, even more with value-added tax. So exactly. Eric, with that being said, you can head out if you want to, so I don't hold you up for the whole time. If you want to leave any of your contact information, or just say, find me on LinkedIn or whatever, and then we can leave you and we can do the next thing.
All right. Well, thanks again for having me. Yeah, I would say find me in the feedback, because trust me, I'm there. And please continue to leave your feedback so we can make this even better for you. And thanks again, Hector, for having me.
Awesome, man. Thank you for coming. By the way, very gutsy to get an Intuit employee to be in the gauntlet here with me, because I don't sugarcoat any of my feedback. All right, so let's jump to reports. So we're going to talk about modernized reports. I'm just going to quickly go through all the things that they've changed in modernized reports. So two things from the last quarter is there's a new button that says View Options. It eventually just helps you either change the spacing when it comes to summary reports, or to either collapse or expand if you have groupings. And on the right side, they added a refresh report button, probably highly inspired by Right Tool, because we added a refresh button there a couple of months ago, but it didn't have a refresh button before. It was all the way in the bottom, and you can only refresh once. Now they did a real refresh button, which is really, really needed. Unfortunately, because these modernized reports, sometimes when you run them, they show up blank. and they don't show up the actual data until you hit refresh, which is really frustrating. But at least there's a button there, and you don't have to scroll all the way to the bottom to go find the button. They added a couple of features. So the first challenge that the reports had was that when you save them, when you memorize the reports, you couldn't group them together. So now they added a grouping mechanism for the new modernized reports. Keep in mind that you cannot group classic reports and modernized reports together. So you can only group together all modernized, or you can group together all classic. But this is a good first step. Now you can group them. And the other really cool thing that they added, and big kudos to the team for going over this really seemingly simple minutia, which is they added custom fields to the sales by customer detail report. So if you want to go through sales and you want to group them by custom field, you can now do this in the modernized reports, which is really, again, it's a small thing, but it just goes a long way. It's really, really powerful to be able to use custom fields in the detail reports. And the other thing that they added is, and for some reason, the first pass of the modernized reports, when you went to do a filter, it didn't show deleted accounts or deleted customers. So now they added the ability for you to filter for a particular deleted account or deleted customer. It would be nice to just filter across all deleted customers. That would be really neat. But what they just added is, okay, if you know the name of the deleted customer, you can pick it and you can filter by that. That's really important too. And the other really cool thing that I liked, I really love this, is when you filter through customers and accounts, if they have sub accounts or if they have like sub customers and projects, you can filter not just by the specific account, but by whether or not it's a account or any sub customer under it or not. So this just adds some complexity to the reporting. Now on this webinar, I don't have near enough time to do examples of like the practical applications of this. I may have to do a whole webinar just focused on doing custom reports, but it's an important little piece here that they're adding more and more sort of dimensions of filtering to these reports. Okay. All right, so let's just kind of showcase that really quick. So when I go into reports, eventually you're going to see some reports contain this little new enhanced experience icon. Just basically means that it's the new reporting system. My favorite report to create for detailed transactions is the transaction detail by date. Sorry, not by date, by transaction detail by account. That's kind of like the first report, the first go-to report I think about when doing any sort of reporting. So we'll open that. Okay, and then there's my report is loading. And like I said, sometimes you load the report and for some reason it won't show up. You have to click on refresh for it to actually show the transactions. It's possible that there's no transactions here for that date range. So let me try that again. Okay, well, this is the thing about these reports that sometimes they just don't work the same way they work. The other ones work. Let me do open invoices. Let's see if this is just going to glitch out on me. Okay, this one's working. And notice that this is one of those reports that by the end of May, you're not going to have a classic version. So you have to be on this version no matter what. So here in the view options, you got the normal view, and then you got the compact view. And this is just like tiny little spacing between the lines, not too significant. And then you have collapse all, which is if you have any groupings, you'll collapse the two groupings for you. So I like that. I actually think that collapse all and expand all is such a common thing that you really shouldn't be hiding it under view options. In my opinion, you could just put it out there and just put collapse and expand. I don't get the logic at all why you would hide that in there, because most people don't even know that that's there. So it's there. So it's there under view options. So you know. And you can, of course, you can collapse and expand each one manually if you want to. Now on the filter side, as I mentioned, if I go to add filters and I go to filter by, and I go to customer, one of my dimensions is specific customer, including sub-customers. So I click on including sub-customer, and then I pick, all my customers, including sub-customers. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I can just pick up a particular customer if I want to. So it just gives me some interesting dimensions of things that I can search. If I have any customers that have been deleted, as I showed you on the PowerPoint right here, customer has been deleted. It shows. If I type deleted here, unfortunately, unfortunately, there isn't a select all. But if you want to run a report where you only want to see deleted customers or deleted accounts, this is your workaround would be to type deleted and then click on check on each one of the ones that have been deleted. So it will be awesome whenever, you know, it goes across all deleted. That would be really awesome. But there isn't something where I can just say, hey, it contains the word deleted. So first step is show the deleted ones on the drop down. Second step is, can I just pick all deleted, or maybe, you know, a filter for is deleted, yes or no, something like that would be really interesting. But that gives you a general idea, the logic of this new feature. Now, specifically, let's go back into reports. It was sales by customer detail. So this one right here, sales by customer detail. One of the filters available here is my custom field. Okay, so I got custom field 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so if I go filter by custom field 1, and I want to say, oh, it equals to a particular piece of information. So I need to open one to see what information is in this custom field. So this one, let's turn it back on because I had it disabled. So when your custom fields are disabled, not going to work too well, but we will turn those on. And let's turn these bad boys back on. 1, 2, and 3. So my 3 custom fields are turned on. I'm going to go back and open up my invoice, whichever one it is. And this invoice has, for custom field 1, let's put here Jorge. And then for this one, we'll put Florida. So just assume custom field 1 is the name of a person, and custom field 2 is a state, for example, just an example here. And then we'll pick another invoice here, and then we'll do Jorge and then New York. Then we'll click on save. And then we'll pick another invoice here at random, and we'll put here Mary, and we'll put Florida, and click on save. Okay, so I got at least 3 invoices that contain this information in custom fields. So when I go back into my report, and it was sales by customer detail, okay, and I'm going to show my custom fields here. So I'm going to show 1 and 2. So here's my custom fields. I'm going to do all dates here, and then come back here, and these invoices should show up with these custom fields. Let's grab this one really quick here. Got Jorge and New York. Click on save. That's strange. Those should be showing. Not sure why those are not showing. Let's click on refresh report. Oh, there they are. Okay, now they're loaded. So there you go. George, New York, Mary, Florida. We have the information there. So if I only wanted to see my sales for New York only or Florida only, that's what this stuff comes in handy. We go to filter, pick custom field 2, and go equals Florida. And then click on refresh. And then that's only my Florida sales, right? And then I only want to see, let's say, Mary. So I go to the second custom field. And just to clarify, this is not QBO Advanced. This is QBO Plus, anything with any sort of custom field. And then there it is. So there's not only Mary and only Florida are showing up. Okay, which also includes, let's say if I remove these filters here, it includes the grouping. So I can choose the custom field as the grouping too, which is really neat. So I can now filter by custom field and just include one that's not empty. So now you see how we group them here together. So we have all my sales for George and Mary. So again, I probably need to do an entire webinar just on report building, but I kind of wanted to show you why is it so important for us to do that. Okay, next thing is the QBO journal entry. Recently, probably February or March, across all versions of QuickBooks Online, there's now an option to import journal entries. This is huge. If you want to go straight with a direct URL, you can just literally copy and paste the URL into your QuickBooks Online, and it'll go straight to it. So either save that URL directly or go into the gear menu. So I'll just show you the normal workflow. We'll go in the gear menu and then go into import data right here, and then journal entries. You know, like if Intuit was paying me to give them feedback, which they never do, by the way, the place I would put it is here somewhere. So when you're doing a journal entry, I would put a button that says import from CSV or something. Like the logical place is for you to go to a journal entry, and then from here it tells you, hey, you can import a journal entry. But no, you have to know that you go into gear, import data, and then into the journal entry button. So then we're going to import journal entries, and you're going to see a couple of things that are worth looking at. The first one is import guide. Import guide is really cool. So we're going to import guide is a little PDF, totally worth printing and having there as a cheat sheet. You have a visual of the journal entry. You have a name of every field, so you know exactly what the field should be called when you do the mapping. Mapping is the most important concept behind importing any sort of data. So then we're going to go and have a sample piece of data, and then we're going to import that. Now, for the time being, I'm just going to do something really quick. I'm going to go into reports, and this is just kind of a setup here, because this is the only way I could do this fairly quickly. I'm going to export a trial balance just so I can have exact customer names and that sort of thing. So we'll have the spreadsheet here live so you can kind of see how this works. Okay, and let's go to view. Let's go here to 200%. So I'm going to clean up this spreadsheet. I'm only going to see my account, my debit, and my credit. So just kind of imagine a world where, for whatever reason, you have a journal entry in Excel or in Google Sheets or any sort of spreadsheet software. Like, you do have to put yourself in that state of mind where, in whatever world you happen to be in, a journal entry exists in a spreadsheet. Okay, and let's put here account. Okay, so let's say this exists. Maybe this came from your payroll company. Maybe this came from your point of sale system. Maybe it came from some other system, and you ran a macro and you build a journal entry that's automated. Okay, maybe you have multiple journal entries, because it actually works in multiple journal entries, which is interesting too. And then we're gonna go back in here, go into our import data, and then go back into journal entry, and then go into browse. Now, before I go into browse, you can't just grab whatever spreadsheet in whatever format you want and import that. Like, it does have to comport to a particular format. So in the format that it's going to comport to, it's on a sample CSV. So you download the sample CSV, which we're going to open here really quick. Let's overwrite that. And let's look at this sample CSV. And the sample CSV tells me this is the way it needs to look like. You got to have a journal entry number. You got to have a journal entry date. You got to have the account name, debits and credits. And yes, you can bring in description. Yes, you can bring in customer name. Yes, you can bring in class and location. But understand that this general format needs to be in here. So in my particular spreadsheet, I got the debits and credits and the account. I got this part nailed. What I don't have is journal entry number and journal entry date. So I have to insert two columns here. Okay, and then we're going to have a number and then date. And then if this is a single journal entry, then I just have to put it in one area. So I'm going to put journal entry 1010101, and the date, I'm going to put today's date, 05/23/2024. So if I do it like this in a single line, then it knows the entire sheet. The entire sheet is a single journal entry. But if I do a couple, so for example, I'm going to come in here and paste this here, and I'm going to give this a different number. So 101, 202, 202, something like that. And then we'll make this on 524, just to kind of have two different ones. And then just to kind of make my life easier here, I'm just going to delete a bunch of lines here and then just do a simple, let's say 50,000 and 50,000. So what you're seeing me do live here is to close out this spreadsheet. You're seeing me do live here is you're watching me do zoom out so you can see all of it. You're watching me do two journal entries in a single journal import. So we got this long one here, and then we have this short one here in the bottom. Okay. Now this is gonna give me an error, and I'll wait in the chat to see if anybody would guess specifically why this thing will give me an error. Anybody can think of why this thing will give me an error? I would love to just see if anybody guesses this right. This is not gonna work. Okay. And the error has to do with there is a accounts payable, accounts receivable, and accounts receivable that doesn't contain the actual information of the customer or the vendor. So it won't let me import. These blanks are okay. These are not the error. Like I said, like I mentioned, as long as you do it in this format, it knows that the minute there's a new transaction number, that's going to reset and go to the next journal entry. And as long as they do contain two different numbers, you're going to be fine. So we need to add a new column for name. And then I have to put a customer name here on AR. So let me X out of here. And let's just go to a normal journal entry to see what the customers look like in this world. Okay, so there's my customer here. So I'll copy this customer information, come in here, and I'll make sure I'll put this here. Boom. And the same thing here. Boom. Right. So anytime you see accounts receivable, you got to have a customer name. And then for accounts payable, I got to have a vendor name. So same thing. I want to make sure that there's accounts payable. Now I could have done an example without it, but I think it's just really important to include that. You can also add classes. So let's say we have this class here. So we can go into class and just copy and paste this all the way down. Let's say it's all the same class, just to kind of simplify our world. And the same thing with location. So we do location. And do we have any locations in this file? Yes, we do. We have a location called QuickBooks Shopify. So we'll bring and paste that down. So all this stuff is just regular Excel, Google Sheets type functions. Okay, and then I can add one more here for description. And I can put here imported from Shopify, whatever, right? So like whatever stuff here, and it's for the second one, we're gonna put from POS review May 2024 or whatever, right? So like whatever type of description or memo I want to put. So that's it. That's really all you need to have. You got to have your transaction number, your date, your account, debit and credit, the name of payee if you require it, and if there's a AR or AP, description, class, and location. Okay. So I'm gonna save this as a CSV file. That's really important. Excel workbook wouldn't work. It needs to be CSV. Okay, that's just what we have, and we're gonna call this journal 1, journal 2, or something like that. Click on replace. Done. So there's my file, and now I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope that in a live demo I didn't screw something up in the process. So let's go into import data. Let's go into journal entries. Let's go into browse. Let's go into downloads. Let's pick this file. Hold on, let me list them. Make it a little easier for me to find them. Where are you? Journal entry number 2. Hold on a second. I'm gonna save it on the desktop. Maybe I can find it easier. Let's go desktop. Save. Okay, let's go desktop. Where are you, file? Why are you giving me trouble? Hold on. Try this again. This might be more of an issue with my computer. Let's go into downloads. Let's do journal entry 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's go back to downloads. Yeah, give me 1 second. My computer just acting up. There it is. Okay, or next. Okay, now there comes the mapping, right? So we're gonna say, okay, which is my journal entry number? And this is where that cheat sheet comes in handy, because it'll let you know, okay, what does that mapping mean? So the journal entry number means then the transaction number, and then we map the date, the account. It's smart enough that if the dates match, it knows to grab them. And then memo is called it was called description. Okay, so again, you do have to do a little bit of mapping. All these greens means it's mapped correctly. Then we go into next, and then because here journal entries must have at least 2 lines. So maybe I screwed up something. Let's see. Let's just go back here for a second. Let's try doing this. And let's click all the way down. And I will do this and click all the way down. That could have been my mistake. I was overly confident that I only had to do it in 1 line. So again, awesome that this is going to happen live, because you kind of get to see exactly how this will work. So let's go look for my file again. There you are. There's my file. Next, I do the mapping again. Okay, thank you for making me do it again. Love the forceful exercise here. Let's go back again, pick the file. Let's go to next. Let's make sure the mapping is right. So journal entry number is number. Memo was description. And yeah, that was it. We go to next. Okay, there we go, finally. So 2 journal entries have been imported. Complete the import. Okay, get a little thing here. Almost done. There's a little link there, which you think does something logical, but what it does is when you click on it, it goes to a transaction search. I don't know why. That's what it does. I guess at this point you can come in here and put journal and then maybe go find it. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a thing, but it was kind of a weird follow through. So then let's look at the actual journal entry that was brought in. Okay, so there's one of the journal entries right there, pretty straightforward. And then my other journal entry is this, the one next to it, this one. There's my big journal entry. So once you learn how to do this really well, it's pretty transformative. It will save you tons of time. One really important thing I want to mention is account numbers. If you have account numbers turned on, and it's okay to turn them off temporarily. So if you have account numbers turned on, the journal entry import goes completely haywire. So my recommendation is to just have the account numbers off while you do the import. And I did a whole video on this in YouTube. It just gets confused with account number and account name. You should just consistently just work on account names. I've already given the feedback to their team and said, hey, you should be able to accept just account numbers or just account names, because that could be useful. But unfortunately, as of the last time I tested this, if you use account numbers and account numbers only in your import, it won't work. Okay. All right. Let's see where we are. Okay. So the next thing that they added in QuickBooks Online is the ability to send reminders, multiple reminders, to customers that have multiple open invoices. It's really cool. So let's go back into QuickBooks here. Let's go into sales and we'll go into invoices, and let's just go into unpaid invoices. So we know that there's quite a bit of unpaid invoices. It's very clear here. So when you actually go into customers and you have this customer, Joe Mitchell, that owes me a whole bunch of money. If I go into it, there's a whole bunch of open invoices. So when I go back into customer, I can go here where it says action, receive payment. I can click on the drop-down menu and click on send reminder. It's really neat. You go to send reminder, and then let's say this is Joe at, I'll use my email address here, and then click on send, and it says, we are sending reminders for 7 invoices to the original recipient. Here is the custom wording. You can change that if you want to. And you can say, hey, deadbeat. Okay. And then I click on send, and now it sends the reminders. I don't know why it gave me an error. It shouldn't be an error, but it in my test, it works. Try one more time, maybe because the email wasn't saved prior. My recommendation is probably to edit and add the email to the customer first. Actually, let me check my email really quick just to make sure that I'm not jumping to conclusion that the reminders didn't come. No, the reminders didn't come, not yet anyway. Okay, so let's save this. Okay, and let's go back into customers again. Let's go and do the reminder. Okay, the email's there automatically, perfect. And then I can say, hey, deadbeat, pay me, okay. And then I click on send, and I don't know, I'm getting an unexpected error up there. I'm checking my email, it's not coming in through my email. I would say I show you how it works. It probably should work somewhere. But I don't know why the last piece wasn't working, but supposed to work. But anyway, I'll show you how it works. I'm sure they'll fix it. I'm sure they'll watch this video and be embarrassed and send an engineer to work all night to fix it. But that's kind of like the concept. The other really cool thing is, and if you have QuickBooks payments turned on, so you have the merchant accounts, right? When you when you're able to charge via a credit card, they added this cool little feature when you send invoices called add text message. So if you put your customer's phone number there, you get a little preview of what this is going to look like. It's going to say, hey, Juliet, invoice, whatever is there, click here. And when you click on it from your phone, you see a digital receipt you see a digital version of the invoice and the pay button, the pay now button. So that to me, it's a really interesting thing because, like, you know, interacting with text messages, some clients just respond better with that. So I would say I like the fact that they added that very much. I like this. I'm completely game with this. I love this. It's great add-on. The other thing that they added was they brought back the concept of having a little checkbox to make an account a sub account. And the experience right before this, it was just really bad. It was, instead of it being a checkbox, it was a drop down of your entire chart of accounts. It was very confusing. I like the fact that they brought back the logic, right? Where you're going to make an account a sub account. First, you pick what it is, then you click on make sub account. Let me see if my file has this already. Let's go into the chart of accounts. It also seems to be like not all the accounts have it, but my account has it, which is beautiful. So I'm going to have account. I'm going to do sub account A or whatever. And then I pick, this is going to be an expense. And then I click on the little checkbox to say, this is going to be a sub account of something else. Click on that. And then I get just the narrow list of expense accounts only, instead of having that weird, super long chart of accounts thing where I have to pick, you know, what account it belongs to. So I absolutely love this. They haven't done away with detail type. I'm gonna get off my soapbox on that. Detail type is so useless and it takes so much time and thinking away from you when you're doing accounts. But at least they fixed this logic where you're gonna pick the account name, the account type, and sub account of. I love that. And I actually do love the little preview here. I love this. This is actually a net good thing. So from the new side drawer, I like the preview. I just never liked the big weird workflow that used to have before. And I'm not sure if I have time to go look to see if I have an account that has the old workflow. I'm sure you might have a client or two that have that. As I was mentioned earlier, when we were talking to Eric from Intuit, they did add frozen while scrolling on the chart of accounts, and they added it on the sales screen too. So I love that. That's absolutely great. You know, the frozen panels in the top, the frozen edit are are essential. So it's like they're getting there. So I love that. Absolutely good. The other really interesting thing they added is, and I'm gonna kind of show this live. When you go into customers and you're gonna rearrange something in your customers, I said this one, not this screen. Maybe let me see this all sales. Okay, yeah, this one has it. So you're in the all sales screen, not in the customer screen, in all sales. You get a couple of extra options here. So one, you have these 3 little dots, and these 3 little dots give you quick links. These are basically quick links to reports. And is it necessary? No, but it's a cool delighter. Sometimes, I want to go to a report quickly that's contextual to the screen that I'm in. I happen to be in sales. I happen to be looking at customer stuff. There might be a situation where I click on these 3 little dots, and one of these things will be useful, and it'll be more useful than me going back to reports and go finding the report. And then when I go click on this customer balance summary, where I think they missed the mark is they didn't open it in a new tab. That's the part where it breaks for me. Like, for this to be useful for me, I cannot break where I am, because I might be like somewhere down here. I've been looking for something that I want to look at a report. And unfortunately, this doesn't open in a new tab. I would have to right click and then go to a new tab. Okay, that's an option. But for us, it might not be immediately obvious that that I have to do that. And then once I click on that, the damage is done. I'm already out of my screen. I can click back and get back into the screen, but I'll lose my place in line wherever I happen to have been if I was scrolling down. So it's cool. I like it. The other thing here is when I click on the gear menu, let's say I want to see, I'm going to take out all these boxes here. And let's say I only want to see customer project. I want to see a memo, and I want to see my custom field, for example. Okay. So it's really cool. I chose what I want to see. But what I love about this is they added this little weird save as a default. Actually, not weird, amazing. Okay. Save as default. This is great, because when I click on save as default, next time I come into the screen, it's going to stick, my settings are going to stick. Now, I love this. I have nothing against it. I think they nailed it. We needed this. It's super useful. But unfortunately, you kind of have to remember what screens is in. Like if I go to customers, it's not in here. So you kind of have to remember which screens have it and which ones don't. That drives me kind of crazy. Like this one, again, this one has it, so like I have to remember that this one has it, save as default. I love that. So some screens have it, some don't. It looks like most of the sales screens have it. On the expenses side, I don't think they've added them yet. Let's just double check here. So yeah, so this one doesn't have save as default anywhere. And again, one of the things that kind of drive me crazy is like, every screen is built by like a different employee at Intuit, a different team. So like they don't go eye to eye in terms of having like exact matching interfaces. So like this is one thing that it would be a huge delighter for every screen to have this save as a default thing. But again, you kind of have to remember which ones have it. So most of these sales tabs, all sales, invoices, estimates have it. Payment links doesn't need to have it. Customers doesn't have it, and products and services doesn't have it. So you just kind of have to remember which ones have it and which ones don't. Okay? Welcome to our world, having to remember things like that. A couple other things worth mentioning. QuickBooks added a receive payment button hidden in the sub menu of review and send. So when you're creating an invoice, there's no obvious receive button anywhere, unless you click on like 3 different things to get there. So just keep in mind that down there on the review and send, if you click on the drop down or the menu, you see receive payment. So worth mentioning, that's there. Also, the placement of payments associated with an invoice, also totally not obvious. So quick reminder, it's been added all the way to the bottom, on the bottom right of the invoice, and it gets listed as different transactions. So I'll show you that one live. That one's worth looking at live. So let's go into invoices. Let's open up an invoice here. Okay, and this invoice is open. Now, linked transactions, it's only for estimates. Like in my opinion, a payment is also a linked transaction. So I think it should show up there, but it doesn't. It just wasn't built that way. So the payments are going to show up here in the bottom. So if I receive payments against this, so let's go into receive payment, and we'll receive two partial payments. Let's go. So let's receive one for, let's say, $100, and we'll click on save and close. Okay, why this sends me back to the home page, but don't even get me started. Let's go back. Let's go back into the invoice. Let's go find the invoice, and let's receive the other payment. So let's go receive payment. Yes. And let's say this one's gonna be, let's say, $600. Okay, and $600. I think I may have applied the first one to the wrong invoice. It looks like. So we'll fix that in a second. So let's clear this. Let's go and type $600 here. Okay, and then save, and let's do a save and new. So we have to do it over again. And let's do $100 on this one. The first one didn't save or didn't take or whatever it was. So save and close. Again, the fact that it takes me back to the home page. Well, this time took me back to the invoice. Okay, I like that. Good. So here's partially paid. That's fine. So the payment tag is right next to the invoice. So I'll say paid, partially paid, or say nothing. Link transactions, again, it doesn't show the payments here, only shows the estimates. But when you scroll all the way down, here's my payments, payment 1 and payment 2. Okay, so when I click on payment 1, this they nailed. Okay, this opens in a new tab. I love that. Amazing. Good job. And then payment 2 here, it opens in a new tab. So this I like. I love this dimension of not getting me out of the screen that I'm in. Okay, so that's there. And then some people are asking what edit totals is. This is down here, edit totals. It opens up what other information you want to see in here. So if you want to see the deposit box and the discount box and the shipping fee box. So you have all these things in here. I personally don't like using shipping and deposit in here because you don't get to pick the class. So if you have classes attached to it, it goes without a class, which is a big challenge. So I actually prefer to have them in line, to have an actual line for shipping and actually a line for deposit, a whole other issue here. But what's cool about this deposit, if you click on manage, you actually get to pick what the deposit looks like. So if you actually come in here and go into, let's say, into my undeposited funds account, and if I pick here a deposit of, let's say, $500 or $5,000 or whatever, when I click on save, it will create an additional transaction for that deposit. Okay, which is really neat. I like that. It's different than using an inline thing. So like there should be a payment somewhere. I wonder where it is. Let's go back into the invoice. And let's see the payment history here. Okay, yeah, so so it doesn't show up as a separate transaction. It shows up in the line here, but just so you know, there's an underlying deposit there for $5,000 that you'll see it on the register. So let me X out of here. Leave without saving. Let's go into the chart of accounts, and let's pull up the cash account. Go to view register. And there should be $5,000 somewhere. Come on, QuickBooks, don't embarrass me. Where's my 5,000? No. Let's just say, oh, it's on the, it said cash. It wasn't in cash, it was undeposited funds. You guys are right. I put it on deposited funds. So where's payments to deposit? There it is. Okay, so there is my transaction, and it comes in as a deposit in the memo, but it's actually tied to the invoice itself. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, oh, so this was really important too. One of the things that's been frustrating a lot of QuickBooks users in the new invoice screen, the old invoice screen, there used to be a button down here that said more. So in order to get that more button, which it's not there. Like there's not going to be a more button. You have to click on manage, and then inside manage, you got to click on actions. So all these things, receive payment, make copy, delete, void, audit history, transaction journal, is inside actions, inside manage. So it takes 2 clicks. You got to click on manage and then actions. Okay. I know. I hate it too. I wish they had the actions button down here somewhere. Which is then worth mentioning that we hacked this thing a little bit. I'm going to show you what we did here. So I'm going to pull up an invoice. And with the Right Tool add-on, I assume most of you already have Right Tool, so you've already seen this. But for the ones that haven't, I really recommend that you use Right Tool because it'll change your life. But with Right Tool installed, under the free version, we have a setting that will actually add the actions button down here. Let me turn on, yeah, it's right here. So there's the actions button right here. So you click on actions, and then we added these things here. So you don't have to click on manage. You just click on actions, and we have it up here. And as a sort of test, we also added the receive payments as an explicit button on the top right. It just says receive payment. So you don't have to go in there and click on receive payment. There's a receive payment here. We're exploring the idea of potentially bringing all these action buttons up here to the top. Some people are telling me it might be a little bit crowded. They like the actions button better. We'll kind of test it out. We'll see which one is better. So I'll disable. I'll show you one more thing because it's worth mentioning too. I have to go to a different file for some reason. Don't ask me why, but it's actually a really interesting new feature that we've added in the same realm of improving or trying to improve what the invoices look like. I'm gonna go to a file that has customer notes. So I'm gonna show you, and this was direct feedback from users that they always want to add notes to an invoice or to a customer while they're in an invoice. So I'm gonna show you kind of like how we fix the workflow of notes. So let's say you're gonna create an invoice and you want to either read customer notes or write notes to the customer. So wrong file. This file has the old experience because I use price rules. So give me 1 second. Let's go to this file here. And let's go into invoice. And one thing that I want to address is one of the challenges that we have with the new invoice format is that they added here a little tab called scheduling, and they added a link for recurring invoice. And the idea for this is when you click on recurring invoice, there's going to be a drawer that opens on the right-hand side, and all your recurring invoice settings will be built into this screen. Right now, for the time being, when you click on recurring invoice, it sends you to the old invoice experience to do a recurring invoice, and you lose everything you were working on. So if you already have a bunch of data in there, you lose that. So just keep in mind, if you're going to create a recurring invoice, you have to create it from scratch. Like you can't just go in there, type something in an invoice. Just pick an invoice here that has data in it. Okay. So you have an invoice that has potentially a bunch of data. Okay, let's go pick a bunch of items here. So let's say we have a bunch of data, and now we want to make this recurring. So we want to make this thing recurring. If I go to scheduling and click on recurring invoice, they haven't figured out how to get the information from the invoice you were working on onto the old format. So just keep that in mind. You have to build the recurring invoices from scratch. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, the thing I was going to show you is, let's say, for example, I'm going to about to invoice my customer, and I want to see the notes. So I click here where it says show notes, and then I'm going to type here, this customer is a PITA charge up front. Okay, something like that. So I put a note there. Let's say next time I'm going to create an invoice for this customer or an estimate or whatever, and I want to see those notes. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to tag tag it so it immediately tells you that it's a pending note. That would be awesome. But you click here, it says show notes. Again, this is red because it's a right tool add-on, and it opens up your drawer. It opens up your notes and it expands your notes immediately. So it's a quick way for you to look at your notes. If you don't have a right tool installed, so I'm gonna disable right tool really quick and refresh. You still get, to an extent, you get access to that because I can come in here, but I have to do a couple of steps. I got to click on edit customer. And then while in the customer screen, I got to scroll down and I got to find my notes. And then if I have really long notes, I have to expand the box. So if I happen to have multiple lines of notes, for example, okay, and I don't expand it, if I go to edit customer and click and go down to, I don't get to see the extra lines. I have to literally expand the box to see the additional lines. Sometimes that's really important too. So I wanted to mention that because that's such an important part of like your workflow when doing that. Oh, the other one that's really, really cool, really, really important is most people were complaining that we lost in the new estimates, new invoice format, you lost the ability to go from estimate to purchase order. So that's not the case. It is there. It's just very, very hidden. So for example, let's say I'm creating an estimate with a bunch of information, and then I want to flow this information to a purchase order. So it isn't totally obvious where my workflow is to go from estimate to a purchase order. If I want to go from estimate to invoice, typically I switch the estimate to accepted. And then once you switch it to accepted, you see the convert to invoice link. But the convert to PO link is not here, so we're just tripping a lot of people up. But down here on the review and send, if you click on the drop-down menu, that's where they added. They got copy to invoice, copy to purchase order. So they're both in there. So you click on copy to purchase order, and it'll go and create the purchase order from the information in the estimate. Okay, or at least it should, or it's supposed to flow the data through. Maybe they haven't figured fully how to completely get the information in there, but that's what the workflow is as it stands, and they should have that live, fully operational soon enough for everybody. Let's see what else is worth mentioning. Okay, so we have a new batch enter customers screen. So if you go into QuickBooks and we go into our customers, here it says new customers. You click on the drop-down menu, and then you're going to click on where it says multiple customers. Multiple customers has a new spreadsheet style sheet or screen, whatever you want to call it. And then you can bring the information in here. You could choose what information you want to bring over. So let's bring over the customer name and the address, just like that. Okay, so if I happen to have a list of customers and names, let's do one in ChatGPT really quick. Yes, I know I'm a weirdo like that. I'm gonna put give me a random list of customer names and addresses. Okay, so in a table format, customer, street, city, state, zip. There we go. Okay. And let me just make sure that this is the right format here. Yeah. Name, street, city, zip. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so then I get this. Copy. And as I mentioned before, when I get a shirt done, it should work. Paste. There you go. Boom. So cool. So I love this. This is making really great progress. Copy and pasting is my love language. So I love this. I like the fact that I can also bring in balances too. So if I happen to have, not that one. Let's just open up another spreadsheet here. Let's go to new. Okay, so I happen to have the same spreadsheet. Zoom this bad boy in. And let's say I also have balances. And then I have the date. So let's say this is 12/31/2023. Just copy and paste that down. So I'm bringing in a list of customers with balances. So copy, come back in here and paste. Wondering whether I can paste. Let's just clear first, or see if I can paste over. I'm gonna try that. There you go. So there's my open balances. There's my, I wish the balances had a formatting, but whatever. Open balance dates, and I click on save. It will import all my customers with the open balances. So this new screen is really neat. It's really neat screen, and it works the same way for vendors too. So when I go back into my customer screen, wait until this thing loads, close out all the other tabs, go back into customers. There's all my customers with my balances, and I don't think, yeah, I could do addresses too. I go address, and there's all the addresses. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so try it. It works in all versions of QuickBooks Online. There's both for customers and vendors. There's also a direct URL if you want to get to the direct URL. Way over time, so I'm probably going to dedicate an entirely different video on this particular screen. The products and services screen is getting a new look. It doesn't work for any files that have been imported from desktop, but they changed probably every aspect of what the screen looks like. So just watch my YouTube channel. I'm going to go deep into a video on this. I'll put, once this video goes into YouTube and stuff, I'll put a link to that, because there's just so many moving parts. They added cycle counts, they added variants. The variants are this big crazy thing. You can adjust quantities in batch, which is really awesome. You can reorder quantities in batch, which is really awesome. And only a few files have this, but this is just really neat what they've done. Creating variants in particular is like this whole ordeal. I was probably way too enthusiastic about thinking that I was going to be able to cover the variants, but yeah, we'll do maybe like a 20-30 minute video on YouTube for that. So there's a couple of slides for you just to check out. So if you happen to be on this new version of the products and services, you got a reference guide there for you. A couple of things to mention. QuickBooks Bill Pay for accountants. So QuickBooks Online accountants are going to get free QBO Bill Pay Elite, a $90 value. I think it's towards the end of May, beginning of June. You'll be able to add QB Bill Pay to your clients, your accountant bill clients, add the 30% discount for the core cost of the QB Bill Pay and 15% of transaction fees. And if your client is not accountant bill, so they're paying QuickBooks on their own, and you're an accountant, you're going to be able to recommend QuickBooks in product to your client. So like you'll have a little bit of a, you have actually that one in particular, I might be able to show. So let's go back into an accountant file just so you can see how this works. So let's say you have this is my customer list here. I can click on the drop down menu, and then actually I think I have to go into if I remember correctly, I go into subscriptions and billings, and then I go into like there you go. This is where I go. Sorry. So I have my client bill subscriptions. So I have all the clients that are paying for their own QuickBooks. I can click on the drop down menu here and click on add bill pay. See that? So if I click on add bill pay, because I'm not the one paying for it, then it basically sends it's going to send an email to your client with the recommendation. So let's say you're recommending your client to go to premium, you click on recommend plan, and basically the client gets an email saying, hey, your accountant is suggesting that you add bill pay. Hold on, let me go. This is really cool. It's a brand new concept to be able to get this. So your accountant it's telling you to get bill pay. And then if I click on get started, it takes me to the entire workflow for me to create a bill pay account. And again, this would be like on your client's side, like when your client is logged in, they get the email, they do that. So you get to add it as a recommendation. And if you are paying for the file, you can click on add bill pay, just like you can add QuickBooks Time, and then you could pay for it, and you can make it part of your monthly engagement or whatever it happens to be. So I like that. I like that's really good, really well thought of. And just keep in mind that anybody with Bill.com or Melio, you should no longer have a built-in QBO interface. If you're attaching Melio or Bill.com to QuickBooks Online, it'll still work on their website directly, and it'll still integrate. But only QB Bill Pay, it will be the only game in town for built-in integration. I haven't done a video on Bill Pay because honestly, I don't have one in my file yet. I'm waiting for it to get it on my file. Once I get it on my file, I'll do a full walkthrough of how that works. And then one of the slides here contains the original slides where they announce this information, and a full video where Intuit kind of explains how it works. They don't do a full demo either. It's just all slides, slide demo. But if you actually go through the slides, really good slides from Intuit, the slides contain the entire walkthrough. So somewhere in slide 20 something, it actually walks you through the whole thing, what it looks like when you recommend, what it looks like when your client gets a recommendation, what it looks like when your client is enrolling into bill pay, because it's an underwriting process. Like they have to enter their bank account, they have to enter a bunch of stuff. So it walks you through what every single screen looks like in this bill pay accountant add-on experience. So it's a good thing to look at. The other slide here is, and I don't have a live payroll file with this, but here's a video, and I added the timestamp to it too. So if you go into the video, it goes straight into minute 45, 39, or whatever it is. And then I'll actually walk you through this new feature where basically allows you to edit pay types of employees in batch. I don't have it live, but you can add a particular pay type across a whole bunch of employees at once, and you can batch add or batch edit a pay type per employee. Unfortunately, I haven't done it, so I couldn't walk you through it, but that's the video there kind of walks you through it. And the other thing you're going to start seeing is in the time tab on the left-hand side, you're going to see a whole bunch of tabs for what used to be T-Sheets. It's now called QuickBooks Time. So you're going to see a lot of built-in integration for the old T-Sheets functionality into QuickBooks Online directly. And the last thing to mention, again, I can't demo it because it's not live yet. Spreadsheet Sync for QuickBooks Online Advanced also is going to work in Google Sheets. And there's a video for that too. So if you click on the link there, there's the video announcement, and you alluded to what I mentioned like 2 hours ago, which is this new in the know product updates where Intuit is actually giving you like sort of their communication on all the things that are coming up. So between the Intuit in the know comments and my webinars, I think you should have enough information. So the webinar went 2 hours long, which I love. I love the ability that I have my voice back and I can do this one more time. Last thing I'll do is to plug, show up to my conference. Come in October to Reframe 2024. We're going to have a half day at Technology Update on Wednesday. We're going to have 2 full days of teaching communication techniques. We have speakers are experts in communicating your value, communicating your ideas, how to be a better advisor, better consultant. And then Saturday, we'll have a half day of business planning and like mindset and what does it look like with all the new learning. So definitely come to my conference, come say hi, come learn with us. It's going to be transformative. So with that being said, I'll see you next quarter for a big QuickBooks Online update of new features. And again, subscribe to my YouTube channel to see the upcoming video on the new products and services with variants and cycle counts. Bye.